All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Global Goddess Fest, a week-long virtual festival to inspire, activate, and connect female leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives worldwide. So I'm super excited to have Sarah Little here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited.
And so Sarah and I got connected via social media through a mutual friend. So I'm really excited to share more about her work. So she's tuning in right now, currently from Maryland, visiting some family, but she has been traveling all around the world, most recently in Jordan, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Sarah, just to give you all a little bit of background, she was raised as the citizen of the world. So she traveled to nearly 40 countries and lived in the Middle East, Europe, North and Central America before the age of 18. So a big thing that we're focusing in on for the Global Goddess Fest is like, what is this global goddess mindset? What does it mean to have this broad perspective of really what's happening around the world in many different facets? So Sarah is a storyteller and using film and creative writing. So she's written numerous online publications and different, including Thought Catalog and Matador Network. And she also models professionally. So after she was studying documentary filmmaking for the last 2 years in Chicago, she took this gap year and plans on going back and studying in the Middle East. And so right now she's been working on this epic project, her book called More to Her Story. So we'll be sharing a little bit more about that, but I'm just so grateful for you and to hear more about the perspective that you've been able to witness and receive while talking to women around the world, and I specifically in the Middle East, and getting their perspectives and really talking to women, female refugees. So I just love that you are bridging this gap and really sharing their stories and helping all of us understand like what is happening, because not everyone is able to travel and take the time to have these deep connections. So I first just want to like honor you for your work. So thank you for doing that in the world.
Thank you for having me on this and for letting me, talk about it.
Yeah, totally. So do you want to just share a little bit about your book and maybe some of the inspiration, like what was like the spark that activated this idea to really follow through with it?
Well, it's kind of funny because I get that question like very often about like what is the fire that was ignited in your belly that made you start this whole thing. And it's funny because so often I feel like there has to be this like this moment, you know what I mean, like this light bulb moment. But for me, the why, or like the spark that was ignited, wasn't really ignited until I was on the journey, and like I didn't really understand why I was on it until I was on it. And I think that actually happens with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like it wasn't until I was in those countries and in those refugee camps and having those intentional conversations with girls my age, realizing that girls don't live the way that I live, in different parts of the world. And I grew up, like you said, like overseas, and bearing witness to like how other people live in other cultures, but it didn't really register or resonate with me when I was a kid, because I'm young and I'm naive and therefore incurious about other people's stories. And but when you get older, you start to have a different kind of perspective and curiosity. And when I was like, as a young adult woman, like in these countries, talking with girls my age, realizing that like, oh wow, you can't leave the house past like 8 p.m. because your brother or your dad like doesn't want you to dishonor them, or like you could be killed for doing this. Like whereas for me, like it's such a common thing in my culture. It's just like there's just like this huge disparity and like disconnect that I didn't even really understand before speaking with girls about it.
Mm.
So that was kind of like while I was already on the journey, like that's what kind of sparked. And the truth is like that flame and that spark is always being reignited like all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
definitely. And just to give our viewers like a reference point, you were talking to girls that were between like 17 to 25, right?
Yeah, 17 to like 30.
Okay.
I'm 21 now, so I I took, like you said, I was in school for a couple of years, and then I took a year off to do this. But yeah, if you want me to like just explain the book a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. More to her story is, it's a book. It's like comprised of my conversations with young refugee women from around the world, not just in Syria, but in Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, Afghanistan. All like there's so many places that are being affected by war right now, and so it's just, we're talking about bigger issues than just being a refugee. Like, we're talking about love and marriage and faith and friendship and family and things that every girl in the world like thinks about,
Mm,
because like so often the media just like you know throws out these statistics about refugees, and they just get reduced to like a number or a statistic or a story, and it's like there's more to their stories than just being like displaced.
definitely. And I remember reading, some information about what you're doing, and I loved that you were talking about faith, freedom, and feminism,
Mm.
and like really like what you're saying. I think just getting into the story behind. And so, what would you say? Like, why is storytelling important from your own personal story that you're living, but also like being able to hear these women's stories? How, like, why is that so important?
Well, yeah, I mean, because like I said, like the media so often just portray statistics and numbers, and like we forget, we don't really get to hear the stories behind the numbers, and like that's a huge problem right now. And but I think storytelling is really such a critical way to like dig deeper and really unearth the real intimate thoughts and feelings that people have.
Hmm.
Everybody, as every girl, and find that like common ground and that common humanity that unites all of us, because we're all young women, like we're all girls, like we all feel like the same things, and we all think about the same things, and have similar dreams and passions and ideas, and that gets lost, especially when like we're on this side of the world and they're on that side of the world, and they're going through this, that's something we can't even imagine or fathom. It's hard to like be able to relate, um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah. And so where, like, if you can like zoom out, what's like your dream with what this book will do, or where you want to like take this book?
I think the idea of spreading awareness is like super underrated. That makes
Mm,
sense. Like, it's become such a cliche, and it's an overused statement. Like, oh, we need to raise awareness about this issue or spread awareness. And but the reality is, like, spreading awareness is so crucial. It's like such an imperative part of like what action really means. And like, in order to achieve like change and evolution, like we need to spread awareness about these issues. And like my friends don't even really know about what's going on. And like I said, being able to relate to girls in other situations,
mm.
really far fetched for a lot of people, even for me. Like it did for a really long time, and so yeah, I think that's.
And so you're saying, you didn't really realize like what you were doing until you were already on the path of doing it. So what led you to like going to the Middle East and going into these refugee camps?
What led me to do it? Like, what do you?
Yeah. Yeah. Were you just like, did you wake up one morning, you're like, oh, I'm going to go over there and talk with them? Or, how did that play out?
Well, so yeah, for the book like itself, like I needed to go to these places and actually meet these people, and build these like real trusted relationships firsthand. Um, and that's really what this book is also about. Like, it's about connection and like building that genuine connection, because like it's not like I'm not just flying in. Like, I'm not a journalist. Like, I don't have really any expertise in this subject. Like, I really like it does like when people ask me like what um like were you always interested in the refugee crisis, or like what,
Mhm.
and I never was. So it's more about that connection of um like building that yeah, like understanding that common humanity and that common ground between all people and all women everywhere, regardless
Mhm.
of their circumstances. But to answer your question, like, yeah, I was in the refugee camps and I was working with NGOs like on the ground in each country that were helping me, like UNHCR, the UN has backed me on like a lot of my travels, and they've opened a lot of doors. Yeah, but I think it's really important to like actually build those friendships and those relationships, and not just like fly in and then get a story and fly out.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And so, there's probably women that are watching this that maybe have some sort of inspiration or dream or have this idea like you did of like, okay, I want to make this change. So like, what is the steps that they need to take, or, maybe the first couple steps to actually get something going? I think especially a lot of young women, or young men and women, um, get inspiration, and we have these big ideas and it's like, oh, if only I could do this in the world. So I think that's what differentiates, you with some other people, is that you actually took these steps to physicalize it, make it happen. So what would you say to other women that are watching this that maybe have some sort of idea or dream? Like, what do they do after they get that inspiration?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I would say that, our dreams are a lot more attainable than we think they are.
Hmm.
We can achieve them. Like, it's not like sometimes things feel like super, like we have a dream or we see a problem in the world that we want to fix, we see a wrong we want to make right, and we're like, wow, that's way above my pay grade. Like, I don't know how to like start that or do that. And it can be really scary and daunting, and it's definitely felt like that at times for me. But what I would say to those young people that have a dream and they want to achieve it is like, just, A, you can do it, and B, really having a support system of people around you that believe in you. Whether that, and I think older people, like a little bit older and who have that experience, have been really fortunate to have those kinds of people building and speaking into me. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I also feel like it just starts with that. You have to be passionate about something. You have to be, and passion is again like an overused, underrated word, but like it really, I mean, it's all about passion, and it's all about like feeling angry about something. And anger is not
Mm,
a good place to start with, like, you know what I mean? But it's also necessary, I think. It, yeah, in order to really desire change, I think you need to be
mhm.
angry about something enough that you're like, okay, this needs to change. I'm gonna be the trailblazer that does it, or I'm gonna be, you know, part of that change.
Totally. I love that. And I think that's something that maybe gets forgotten. We think about like, oh, the dream of what we're creating, but usually there's some sort of underlying thing that has happened or that we've experienced or witnessed that has just like fueled this fire of like, no way is this going to happen again. No way am I going to let this happen to anyone else, or vice versa. So I love that you bring that up. And
I think
I think
self
there's this.
like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I think about like my friends and their future daughters and their sisters. Like, what's life gonna look like for them? Like the future generation, is it gonna look like?
Exactly.
Are they gonna be, outed for doing this or doing that, and feeling that
Hmm.
burden of shame for every decision they make, or like just stuff like that, that
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And I think so much of um, so often we're trying to have this really positive outlook, and yet I think, like, would you say like being able to feel into like the fullness of the anger has like been able to help propel you even more? Because I think a lot of the time we try and like dole that down, we dole down these other emotions, and we're like, okay, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't have this like negative outlook on life. But actually that could be the start of something really magnificent.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I wouldn't go as far to say like it is been a catalyst for like a negative outlook on life. Like I
Yeah.
still like retain that positive outlook, but it's also, it is necessary, like you said. Like it is a propeller for making change, like being angry and understanding the gravity of the issue itself.
Hmm.
I think that people, you're right. Like, this is my first time doing anything like this, so for me, it's been a roller coaster of emotions,
Mm.
and I've really had to grapple internally and try to reconcile feelings within myself of faith, for example. I'm a Christian, and I don't say I'm a Christian. Like, I don't say I'm religious that often, just because religion is kind of a loaded term, and it means more to me than just like whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, talking with a lot of girls that are Muslim, most of these girls in the book are Muslim, and like we've talked so much about faith and what faith really means, and who God is, and what role does God play in each of our lives. And it's been really eye-opening for me. I lived in the Middle East as a kid, have had a ton of Muslim friends growing up, but it's really sparked a lot of questions, good questions, within myself about what faith means, and what religion even means. Like, is, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And so what does it mean to you?
What does faith mean, or what is?
Yeah, faith. Mm-hmm.
Um, oof, faith. Faith is faith is everything to me. It's really the reason why I'm here. You know, like, without faith, what is life really? You know, whether it's faith in God, a higher power, faith in yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
it's, for me, it's faith in something beyond myself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, faith is, I don't know. It's everything.
Mm-hmm. And so what would be in this journey of, stepping into doing this work, what would be one of your biggest highlights, and what would be one of your biggest challenges that you faced?
Hmm. My biggest highlights. I think one of my biggest highlights is just that I feel such a, like, I feel like my life is kind of, the trajectory of my life has been shaped and shifted by this entire journey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so now I can clearly see that this is a path that I want to stay on for
Mm-hmm.
maybe the rest of my life. Like, I don't know, but it's something that I feel really impassioned about, and I didn't feel this way like a year ago. I didn't really feel called to do something. You know, that feeling when you feel called to do something, and I never felt that before. So now that I have, done this project, and I'm on the brink of publishing this book, and I've, yeah, it's changed my own outlook on
Mm-hmm.
life, and so that's the biggest highlight, I guess.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, for sure. And a big challenge that I faced, I think, what we were talking about earlier, just this idea of like anger. It's been
Mm-hmm.
it's been a real challenge. Like, I'm already an emotional person, so like I feel things like very deeply. I'm sure you can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I have these conversations with these girls, and these are my friends, like, they're not just girls that I meet and I'm like, all right, tell me your story, I'm gonna go. Like, these are girls that I've really developed that trust and that relationship with, and it's like, it's hard for me to reconcile some of the issues that they're facing in their life that I don't have to face, and I'll never have to face. Like, um, and that anger has propelled me, like you said, it's been a catalyst for other things, so it could be used as both good and bad. But it's also
Mm-hmm.
been a significant challenge that I've had to, like, learn how to overcome within. I guess not overcome, because it's a good thing, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so when are you planning on releasing your book?
So it'll be out in the summer of 2019.
Okay, amazing. So we'll make sure to have a link for all the viewers to be able to stay in touch with you, and make sure that anyone that's watching that wants to get your book once it's out can link up and share this work that you're doing and listen to these stories and broaden their own perspective on what is a life in the day of these women. So it's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you have any last words for anyone that's watching?
Ooh, and these are all women, right? This is just for women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's women all around the world. Because we have such a diverse, so many diverse leaders that have come to be a part of the Global Goddess Fest. There's really a big range of audience. So, the average global woman.
The average global woman. I would say that you are your biggest, I don't know if asset is the right word, but like,
Mm.
you are you, and that is your superpower. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's,
Yeah.
you don't need to look elsewhere, or don't ever compare the path that you're on to someone else's. Like, you're on your own path for a reason,
Mm.
and that path is specific to you and unique to you, and it was designed specific. So yeah, I would just say that continue on that path, and give your all to it.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here, sharing a little bit about your work. Thank you to all the viewers that have come to also be a part of this conversation with us. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you all soon.